Hi everyone, this is Anne-Marie Batson, and just as I start speaking to you, the heavens decide to open and it's raining, so I apologise for the sound quality, but I'm going to talk about another tennis tournament which is happening this weekend, and some would say it's an exhibition tournament, others are just calling it a tournament, and that's the way that it's been branded. I'm of course talking about the Laver Cup. What is the Laver Cup, that you ask? Well, let me give you a couple of pointers. So the Laver Cup is a 3-day tournament or exhibition, depending which side of the fence you're sitting on. A 3-day exhibition event / tournament featuring Team World versus Team Europe. And it is the brainchild of one Mr. Roger Federer, and it's named after the great Rod Laver, hence the name, the Laver Cup. And it has stopped raining, which means that the sound quality is going to be a little bit better. So apologies if you could hear the rain hitting the windows before in those clips. So back to the Laver Cup. So you have two teams similar to the Ryder Cup. You have Team World and you have Team Europe. And Team Europe's captain this year is Bjorn Borg. And Team World's captain is the same as last year, one Mr. John McEnroe. You see that there? John McEnroe versus Bjorn Borg. 6 European players versus 6 counterparts, so Team World and Team Europe, and the breakdown is as follows. So on Team Europe you have Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Alexander Sasha Zverev, Grigor Dimitrov, David Goffin, and Britain's number 1 Carl Edmund. And then for Team World you have Kevin Anderson, John Isner, Diego Schwartzman people, not Schwartzman, Jack Sock, Nick Kyrgios, and one Francis Tiafoe. Now he has replaced Juan Martin Del Potro, who's withdrawn because he needs to give his body a break after his US Open excerpts. And also note that there's no Rafael Nadal this year. Now originally he had said that he wasn't going to be taking part this year because it clashed with the Davis Cup. However, he also withdrew from the Davis Cup because of his injury woes that he suffered at the US Open. So no Rafael Nadal this year, but we have Novak Djokovic instead playing with Roger Federer on the first day in the doubles, and they've never played doubles together before. So again, this is kind of a historic moment when it comes to tennis. So here's the thing with the Laver Cup. If you want to know more information about the point system, who's going to be playing what, I fully suggest just Google Laver Cup and you can get that information. I just want to look at the balance of the teams and also this potential conflict with future Davis Cups. So in terms of the balance of the teams, if you think about it, on Team World, you've got a mixture of somebody that's a Wimbledon finalist, you have someone on there who's won the Miami Masters, you've got somebody who's won the Paris Masters, and you've got a couple of players who've won ATP Tour events. Compared to Europe, you've got 2 Grand Slam winning champions with multiple tour titles underneath their names. You've got Masters champions in there with Zverev, and also finals. Oh goodness, Goffin, who was a runner-up, and Britain's Andy Murray, then Britain's Carl Edmund. So in terms of the balance and to see which players and the matchups and everything, one would lean towards Team Europe having the stronger team, but it's all about the day, isn't it? And the atmosphere, which is always raucous. I remember watching the first Laver Cup and the atmosphere was absolutely immense. You could feel the electricity around the crowd and the atmosphere. And I should say that the Laver Cup this year is on US soil, so it'll be taking place in Chicago this weekend. So after the heavy biblical rain that we've just had, I've been slightly blinded by the sun. So if you see me squinting again, I fully apologise. Anyway, back to the Laver Cup. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a labour of love for Roger Federer and his management team and various other representatives. And he has said that it wasn't created to compete with the Davis Cup. It was something to honour the great Rod Laver, which I completely understand, and it's an opportunity for rivals such as Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer to play on the same team. And I love the idea, I love the concept. I'm slightly disappointed that there's no points involved in it. I think it would have been a good opportunity because, for example, Francis Tiafoe has pulled out of an ATP 250 event with the opportunity to get points, particularly with the Australian Open not far away, to play at an exhibition event. And I know I call it an exhibition event, and most people in the media or at the tournament organisers are calling it a tournament, but at its heart, it is an exhibition event, in my personal opinion. So a few other points about the Laver Cup in terms of this preview. I think it's a fantastic event to watch, and I think it will evolve over time. There is going to be a battle though with the Davis Cup, and if you are not aware, there's big changes coming to the Davis Cup. Gerard Piqué is part of a group called Cosmos, who've invested a lot of money with the ITF to make significant changes to the Davis Cup. And Gerard Piqué, if you don't know who he is one of the most highest profile footballers in the world, has suggested moving the Davis Cup from traditional November date, which is when the final would take place, to a couple of weeks after September. And heavens above, a couple of weeks after September is when the Laver Cup takes place, which is backed by the Association of Tennis Players. So you can see already there's a potential conflict building over time, and it could have major implications with these two tournaments in direct competition with each other. And from a fans' point of view, there's split loyalties, but more importantly, what about the players? Some of the players are very devoted to the Davis Cup. Marin Cilic is one of those, Rafa Nadal is another. But then there's the opportunity to showcase to the world and play with rivals on the same team as part of the Laver Cup. So there's going to be some split loyalties and difficult decisions made in an already very congested tennis calendar. One could ask, what does the Laver Cup add to the tour? I think it's a bit early to say what it adds. I think if it helped with tour points, I think it would be a huge boost, but I'm not part of the proceedings, so who am I to say that? The players, and certainly the tournament organisers, want you to believe that the Laver Cup is going to be one of the most important tournaments of the calendar. It's very high profile, that is for sure. But as I mentioned, the calendar already is so congested, and you've also, talking about changes that are coming in the new year, as I've mentioned, like the Davis Cup, and then there's a talk about a mixed event in the new year to replace the Hopman Cup in Australia. All these changes, it's so cluttered. At the same time as the Laver Cup, you have the WTA Tour in Tokyo, you've got the ATP Tour in St. Petersburg, you've got challenger events happening at the same time. There is a lot going on. So to try and make it the most important tournament of the year, I think is a massive feat given the standing of the Grand Slams throughout the year. I think it's fantastic there's a dynamic between Roger and Novak. I think it'll be similar to Roger and Rafa Nadal last year. The Fedal, F-E-D-A-L hashtag went around Twitter quite quickly, so I'm keen to see what hashtag is going to be created with Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer playing on the first day in the doubles. A couple other points as well. Does it feel manufactured? That was one thing that was ringing around on social media. I don't know. I don't feel like it feels forced to me. I think it's quite enjoyable to see, as I mentioned, rivals playing on the same team. And also, a couple of the players, particularly on Team World, thrive on group events. You see that Nick Kyrgios is just a different player when it's group matches. And Jack Sock, even though he won the Paris Masters last year, his singles record since then has pretty much gone downhill, but his doubles has shot through the roof. Since linking up with one of the Bryan brothers, he's won titles. So you think it actually plays to one or two players' strengths, playing as a group and supporting each other and cheering each other on. So does it feel manufactured? I don't know. I don't think it does. I think that's a little bit harsh. What happens to the Laver Cup when Federer retires? Good question. Maybe Federer will move into that coaching role. Federer sees it as long term though, that is for sure. He sees this as part of his legacy, so I can't see the Laver Cup dying a death. Pardon the pun, I apologise for any offence, but it is a question that needs to be asked. When Federer retires, what is his plans for the Laver Cup? And one other point to make about it, that this year it's on American soil, it's in Chicago, and this weekend there are some big NFL matches happening. And will the Laver Cup get the audience figures that it deserves? Again, I'm not in the States, so it's very difficult to say, but in terms of TV coverage, is it going to be fighting for its voice to be heard when American football pretty much dominates weekend sports viewing? Who knows? The other thing as well is the expensive tickets. I have seen on social media a couple of grumbles about the cost of the ticket, and because it's an exhibition match, there should be some consideration to maybe use that as an opportunity to introduce people to tennis, to the tennis world, and maybe offer tickets that are more comparative, that are more budget friendly. Again, I'm not over there, so I can't possibly say if it's a bad or a good thing, but it is something to think about as well. If you want to make this a tournament, one of the biggest tournaments of the year, then you're going to have to look at the cost of the tickets. And I know it's an opportunity to see top 10 players, top 20 players, top 50 players all under the same roof, and one could argue that is why the cost of the tickets are so high. But if this is going to be sustainable, and if it faces a potential battle and conflict with the Davis Cup, it means it's going to be facing some stiff competition, and one way to maybe look at that is the cost of the tickets to attract more people to come and watch the event. Final point, Team Europe lead at the moment in terms of the head-to-head. So it was the first year last year, and it ended up being 15 to Team Europe and 9 to Team World. So Team World will want to try and get at least the head-to-head on an even keel. So, but I've already said, I think the balance, looking at it, is very much leaning towards Team Europe's favour. But listen, when those players get on the court, it's going to become competitive. Oh, and one other point I forgot to mention, women players. I'm glad in the media Roger Federer has talked about that some of the WTA players have expressed a real interest in taking part in the Laver Cup. Mixed events draw crowds. They are very, very popular. So I'm hoping in the next year we will see some female players on Team Europe and Team World. Hope you enjoyed my preview of the Laver Cup. Where can you watch it if you're in the UK? Well, if you have Amazon Prime Video, they're going to be showing it, as well as Sky Sports. Other than that, keep across the BBC Sport website and social media as well, because I'm sure there'll be plenty of updates about the Laver Cup and who's winning and who's losing matches. But anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like below, or even better, please subscribe, or let me know, who do you think, that's my question of the day, who do you think is going to win the Laver Cup of 2018? Is it going to be Team Europe or Team World? Let me know. Cheers, take care.